as Yuji unleashes his incredible secret power against Sukuna, and as Kenjaku attempts to exterminate all the Culling Game players one by one. There is one key aspect of the current arc in the Jujutsu Kaisen story that most people are missing. What if Gojo's death was the ultimate misdirection? And what if his epic return was already foreshadowed all the way back in the Jujutsu Kaisen prequel? The key to everything could be Gojo's legendary ancestor, Michizane Sugawara, the ancient sorcerer that the entire Gojo clan descended from. Stick around until the end of the video because this will shock you. Now let's get into it. You guys know how this works. Leave a quick like and comment right now to help me out with that YouTube algorithm. And if you want to help this channel be reborn like Gojo by hitting 2 million subscribers, do me a big favor and subscribe right now. Finally, this video will of course contain Jujutsu Kaisen manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. Gojo's death and return from the dead was actually foreshadowed all the way back in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, the prequel to the story which also became the first Jujutsu Kaisen movie. This is where we learned that Satoru Gojo and Yuta Okkotsu share the same ancestor, a legendary Jujutsu sorcerer from the Heian period, the golden age of Jujutsu sorcery. This ancestor is called Michizane Sugawara, sometimes referred to as Sugawara no Michizane, and he is actually one of the 3 great vengeful spirits of Japan. Like many of the ancient sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen, Sugawara is based on a real historic person, and here's the crazy thing. When I said that this man was one of the 3 great vengeful spirits of Japan, you probably thought that I was talking about the fictional world of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is full of sorcerers, cursed spirits, and paranormal abilities. But no, Sugawara is considered a great vengeful spirit even in our own world, and a lot of the fictional aspects of Jujutsu Kaisen are directly inspired by real Japanese mythology and folklore from the Heian period. Because of this, we can look at the historical and mythological context of Sugawara for clues on why Gojo is not really dead and how he will return to the story. So what is a vengeful spirit? In Japanese mythology, a vengeful spirit or vengeful ghost is the spirit of someone who died an unjust or unnatural death. The spirit of this person refuses to stay dead, and it returns from the afterlife to seek revenge and justice. But while anyone could become such a spirit or onryo, there is a particular type of vengeful spirit called goryo that refers to someone who was a noble or who attained a great deal of prestige and accomplishment in life, but fell victim to betrayal and political intrigue. Due to the unjust treatment they received while alive, these spirits come back from the dead to bring disaster upon the living, including of course those who wronged them. All sorts of tragedies were blamed on these vengeful spirits, including diseases, natural disasters, and even wars. Probably the single best known goryo is none other than Michizane Sugawara, Gojo's legendary ancestor, who would eventually come to be worshipped as a Shinto deity. He became known as the God of Thunder, Tenjin. Remember at the beginning when I said that the truth will shock you? You know, because of the God of Thunder? Do me a favor and drop a like and subscribe for that pun. If you don't, then Takaba will be sad. But before all of that God of Thunder stuff, Sugawara was a prominent scholar, poet, and politician of the Heian period. He lived between 845 and 903 AD, and his poetry, as well as his contribution to the development of learning and education in Heian Japan, is still celebrated to this day. But while Sugawara was still alive, he became involved in a political conflict with the Fujiwara clan, which was the most powerful clan in Heian-era Japan. The Fujiwara were basically the real power brokers in Japan at that time, and they sought to control and intermarry with the imperial family. Sugawara became involved in a conflict between the emperor at the time, Emperor Uda, and a powerful member of the court named Fujiwara no Mototsune. It seems that Sugawara and the emperor were trying to reassert imperial power in the face of the growing strength of the Fujiwara clan. But after Emperor Uda abdicated in favor of his son, Sugawara's position at court became vulnerable, and the Fujiwara clan used this to their advantage. Fujiwara no Tokihira accused Sugawara of wanting to replace the official crown prince with a different prince. And as a result, Sugawara was demoted from his aristocratic rank and his entire family was banished from the capital. Sugawara died in exile only a couple of years later, and that's when the real craziness began. After Sugawara died, horrible things started to happen around the imperial court. There was drought, plague, natural disasters, and the unexpected deaths of the Emperor's sons. The Great Hall of the Imperial Palace was struck by lightning multiple times, and the capital was afflicted by storms and flooding. The Imperial Court concluded that all of these disasters were the actions of Sugawara's vengeful spirit, who had returned from the dead in order to get revenge for the unjust treatment he received while he was alive. The Imperial Court tried to appease the vengeful spirit by building a Shinto shrine in his honor in Kyoto. They posthumously restored all of Sugawara's titles and offices, and they erased any mention of his exile from the official record. But these acts of appeasement did not seem to work, so decades later, Sugawara was deified as Tenjin, a Shinto god of sky and storms. Later on, Tenjin would become revered as a benign kami of scholarship. Even today, in modern Japan, there are many shrines dedicated to Tenjin, formerly known as Michizane Sugawara. He went from a prominent scholar and politician, to a wrongfully exiled vengeful spirit that everyone feared, to a benign and highly respected deity. And this is the historical figure that Gege Akutami, the author of JJK, chose to be Satoru Gojo's direct ancestor. I don't think that's a coincidence, and I believe that we've already been given multiple clues about Gojo's impending return from the afterlife, possibly as a vengeful spirit and a god in his own right, just like his ancestor. I mean, just look at this painting of Michizane Sugawara being reborn as the god Tenjin. Does this image remind you of anyone? Be honest. Now, we know that in the world of JJK, it is possible for Jujutsu sorcerers to become vengeful spirits. If a powerful Jujutsu sorcerer is killed in a way that doesn't involve Jujutsu, they can turn into a vengeful spirit after death. The best example of this was Naoya Zenin. Some have argued that because Gojo was seemingly killed by a slashing attack rather than by cursed energy directly, he could also return as a vengeful spirit. And that whole thing about moving north or moving south in Gojo's conversation with Nanami in the afterlife was actually referring to whether Gojo wanted to stay human and go south, or whether he wanted to start anew, evolve beyond humanity, and become a vengeful spirit by going north. The big question is, would Gojo want to return from the dead so desperately that he would become a vengeful spirit like his ancestor? On the one hand, you could say that Gojo is satisfied with his battle with Sukuna. Yes, he lost in the end, but it was the most exciting battle of his life. And after spending his entire life being the strongest without an equal, he finally met his match, so he would no longer need to be all alone at the top. With that in mind, and with the way he seemed to be acting in the afterlife, it might seem unlikely that Gojo would want to return from the dead as a vengeful spirit. And yet, vengeful spirits return because they have extremely important unfinished business in the world of the living. And Gojo definitely has major unfinished business with Sukuna and the villains. Part of this might just be an ego thing. Yeah, we know that Gojo has a massive ego. He literally quoted the Buddha and said, "Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one." And there are those who believe that Gojo could return as a vengeful spirit that becomes a sort of personification of the human ego, although I personally don't buy that theory. Yes, Gojo can be egotistical, but there is one thing that drives him even more than ego, and that is his desire to help others, especially his friends and his students. The real unfinished business that Gojo has in the world of the living is not soothing his bruised ego by coming back to defeat Sukuna. The real unfinished business Gojo has is protecting his students, his friends, and all those other innocent people of Japan from complete destruction at the hands of Sukuna and Kenjaku. Now, of course, it's possible that Gojo just has faith in his students, and it's possible that they will somehow find a way to defeat Sukuna without Gojo. But at the stage that we are now in the story, I just don't see how Sukuna can lose. If Gojo was by far the strongest modern sorcerer, and Sukuna defeated him before even completing his resurrection and entering his final form, then how can the good guys possibly turn this around? I mean, just look at what happened to Hajime Kashimo. That guy was not weak. He was the strongest sorcerer of the Edo period, and he had an incredible overpowered cursed technique. And yet, defeating him was mere child's play for Sukuna. As a side note, I also personally just don't think that Gojo would really die off screen and then stay dead. That might be just my own cope, but I really don't believe that an epic character like Gojo deserves an off-screen death. However, you might be thinking, well, if Gojo comes back as a vengeful spirit, which is a type of cursed spirit, does that mean that he's going to become evil like the other cursed spirits that we know? Many fans would rather have Gojo stay dead than return as some sort of villain who does things that the real Gojo would never do. Well, we have to remember that not every cursed spirit ends up evil. We have the example of Master Tengen, who started out as a powerful human sorcerer, but then eventually evolved beyond humanity and became more cursed spirit than man. And yet, Tengen didn't become a villain. And in fact, before being captured by Kenjaku, Tengen was actually an incredibly valuable asset for the modern Jujutsu sorcerers. And fun fact, Tengen even stated that fate itself connects Master Tengen to the Six Eyes and to the Star Plasma Vessel. So that also makes me feel like Gojo has unfinished business. Gojo is connected to Tengen through the Six Eyes. So it would make sense if Gojo is the one to ultimately rescue Tengen. I believe that if Gojo follows in the footsteps of his ancestor Sugawara and becomes a vengeful spirit, he will be more similar to Tengen than to someone like Naoya Zenin. He might appear less human, and he will likely have new Jujutsu powers, but he won't become some evil maniac who wants to destroy humanity. He may seek revenge against Sukuna and Kenjaku, but not just because he wants to kill them for fun. What he really wants is to save all the innocent people of Japan, including his students. And by the way, even though most of us are still focused on Sukuna because that man is an absolute menace, we can't forget that Kenjaku captured Tengen. That is a massive problem because Tengen can be used to essentially destroy all of humanity as we know it. And Kenjaku could initiate that plan at any moment. It's not enough for the heroes to just stop Sukuna. They also have to stop Kenjaku as soon as possible. Personally, I don't see how they can do it without Gojo. But what do you guys think? Could Gojo follow in the footsteps of his legendary ancestor Michizane Sugawara and be reborn as a vengeful spirit? And if he does come back as some sort of cursed spirit, what kind of new powers would Gojo have? Like, can you imagine a darker and even more overpowered version of Limitless? It would be absolutely insane. I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. If you're looking for an epic JJK video to watch next, don't ignore this video about Yuji's new secret power, and why Yuji is the only one who stands a chance of maybe, potentially defeating Sukuna without Gojo, although it won't be easy. Link on screen and in the description. If you enjoyed this Jujutsu Kaisen video and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like right now. And if you want to help this channel be reborn like Gojo by hitting 2 million subscribers, do me a huge favor and subscribe right now. Subscribing on YouTube is completely free, but it helps me out a lot.